Happy Saturday. So I am super excited to share with you some of the concepts that came forward yesterday in my presentation and discussion on the foundations of wellness. If you haven't seen it, please go back and give it a listen. It's about 45 minutes. It's not too long. I'm trying to keep these as concise as possible, but it's such rich material. It's really hard. I'm making it really hard I love the details in it, and I love giving examples and giving it context, because there's so much context in this stuff. In one context, maybe it doesn't make sense, and then in another it does. So today I'm going to go over some of the concepts that I brought up yesterday and give you a example in my personal life and how it worked, how it applied, and the results that I received from using some of these ideas and thought patterns to show you that it can work. It can work. And breaking through some of the information that maybe we've received in the past, or information we tell ourselves every single day that just isn't true. So anyway, I'm excited to go through this with you, and let's get started. All right, so today we're going to go over some information that is a little bit of an overview of yesterday, but maybe 25% of it, maybe even just 10%. We'll see what makes sense, but you're on your own, essentially, here in this world. I am bringing this forward in this way because you are the only one who has power over yourself. You do not have power over anyone else or anything else, really. I mean, maybe a car or something like that. But really, when you boil it down, you are this tree, this majestic tree in this beautiful place called Earth that God made. So as or whatever word you want to use for God, creator, universe, right? Whatever. So a lot of people feel uncomfortable with the word God. I use the word God. I'm very comfortable now. At one point in my life, I was not comfortable with the word God. I had to use higher power. I was pissed off at God, I think, and eventually learned to reconnect in more powerful ways and more meaningful ways, and prove to myself that he exists. So as we move through this, I decided to call this presentation Looking into the Mirror. And a lot of presenters show you the problem. A lot of professors and universities, and a lot of these things you'll see online is a presentation about the problem. They describe the problem from this angle and that angle, and okay, we get it, it's a problem. And then a lot of times there's no solution presented at all, no problem solving at all, and or the solution sucks. Doesn't fit your life. It doesn't make sense to you. It's just a jumbled mess, right? So I get, when I used to, if I'm in the wrong mindset, if I see a presentation like that, I will get a lot of anxiety. I can have a lot of anxiety build up if it's just focus on the problem. Let's define the problem from 20 million different angles. And then that's the end of they prove that their perception of the problem is 100% correct, and you back it up with laws of physics or whatever, and I'm sitting there in all this anxiety with no solution. So what I want a lot of my information to do is, I want to point out some potential hurdles that maybe you are going through or somebody that you're going through, or something for you to think about, something to improve yourself, improve your life. But I also want to offer up some possible solutions. So you have something now, okay, you've been made aware of a hurdle. Now, what do we do to move through that hurdle and overcome it, right? So these are mirrors. And a lot of images are somewhat creepy of mirrors. This is possibly because of the association that we have with looking in the mirror. A lot of people don't like looking in the mirror. A lot of people don't want to look at themselves. I have heard stories from others where they haven't looked in the mirror in years when they get dressed or before they go out into the world. So we'll get into some of that, but self-reflection, this is a imagery just for self-reflection and how important you are, because if you can't overcome what's going on in your own mind, you're not going to accomplish really anything. So, and this is another image. And I guess one thing I meant to also say in the last slide is that most of the time you'll be presented something either on television, an image, something that triggers a thought or a reaction, and it's not explained. Here I'm presenting you with images and I'm explaining them. Most of the time when you're receiving an image from another person or a video or something that you're allowing to enter into your conscious or even your subconscious, it's not explained. You're not using that to your advantage. You're not sitting there and reframing it in your own way, in your own mind. Your subconscious is taking in whatever that person is saying or that commercial is saying and tying the thoughts and feelings to that image that is being given to you by that commercial or that program or that movie or whatever. So I'm trying to explain why I have some of these images in here. I believe images and visualization is super powerful. I think it's the most powerful, in a combination with words, some of the most powerful tools that we have as humans for understanding our mind and using our mind in powerful ways. So this is a woman standing over water, and her image in the water is a little bit blurry. You know, she's really wanting to look within herself, but she's having a hard time, right? Like you can't see her face, and the water is still rippling. So a lot of times when we are looking in the mirror and doing this self-reflective work, it's a little fuzzy. We're not really seeing the full image of ourselves. We have to wait for the water to become still in our lives before these pictures and these messages coming from within can be smooth enough to have a perfect reflection. So I really liked this one to set us up for what's to come in here. So I touched on in my last presentation, I like to start with the physical. This is my preference. You can start with any area that you want. You can start with your JOB. I don't know why anybody would, but some people, really have a very strong identity tied to their JOB. So if that's, something that really motivates you and gets you moving in the right path, that's fine. Environmental, some people really focus on this and tie it to the global effort to make the world a better place. I haven't really dived into this piece too much, other than in my own personal space. Environmental can be organizational in your own home, making your life a little bit easier to manage if you've got some systems in place around your environment and some boundaries set up in your own environment. Financial can be very important for some people. Spiritual is always important. These all, and the reason why I created this visual piece is to show that they all overlap. They all have similarities. For me, I see my body as my temple. And if I don't have my physical body, I'm not going to be able to address any of the other things in my life. So for me, that is the first one, and all the other branches kind of come out from there. But again, that's me personally. You can choose to start in any area. This has just been my experience. Any success that I've had in any of my other areas always started with physical. For example, physical was when I was quitting smoking, and I loved cigarettes. They were extremely comforting to me. I really enjoyed smoking, and I had to figure out a way to stop because, one, they're so expensive. I mean, it's like $10 a pack if you have a pack a day, which most people that are smokers do 1 to 3 packs a day. $10 a day, $300 a month, $3,600 per year. I mean, what could you do with $3,600? I mean, you could get a lot of things in this world with $3,600 a year. Compound that over 10 years, then now you're $36,000, right? Even if you just put that extra money into your mortgage, like how many years fall off your mortgage if you're throwing an extra $300 on it? So that in smoking, right? Smoking sounds physical, but now you're getting into a little bit of a financial motivation as you're going through and you're writing down, okay, what are the benefits of quitting smoking? And then for me, in order for me to anchor a negative association, because I had so much positive associations because I was young, I wasn't having any major lung issues yet. I wasn't diagnosed with COPD or asthma, or I didn't have an inhaler. I had never been to the hospital as a result of my smoking. I didn't have any really natural consequences from my smoking yet. I was just going out to punk rock concerts and smoking cigarettes and trying to play the guitar and have fun. And I'm having, cigarettes late at night and coffee and at certain points drinking too much, and didn't really have a whole lot of natural consequences. It wasn't illegal at the time I quit for me to smoke. I wasn't going to go to jail or get a ticket or get a fine. There was no real physical, financial, or really intellectual damages that I was doing to my body from smoking at that exact time. I wasn't getting any natural consequences. I was getting immediately financial consequences, right? Because if we all saved an extra $300 a month for the rest of our lives and put that away for ourselves, that would compound over time and help with perhaps a retirement or a house or whatever, right? But again, I had such a strong positive tie, emotional. And when I say emotional, I mean thoughts and feelings. Emotion is just thoughts and feelings. Some people say that the thought comes first and then the feeling. Other people say the feeling then comes the thought. Sometimes it's so hard to distinguish between the two because they come in at the same time. So whichever way it works in your mind, whatever sequence you're in, then work within that. But when I say emotion, I mean thoughts and feelings. So I had such strong thoughts and feelings tied to cigarettes that I had to figure out a way to make a strong physical tie and create a consequence in some way. So what I would do is I would run every morning, right? And as I would run in the crisp morning air, because it's colder in the morning, I would tell myself, your lungs, because my lungs were burning, especially in the beginning, your lungs feel like shit because you smoke. And I would sit there and I would have like this mantra, like, this is because you smoke. This is because you should be able to do this. And this is happening because you smoke. You can't even run a lap around a field anymore without extreme burning sensation in your throat because you smoke, right? So that was one of the things that I used, that I had to show myself that I was having a real-time, immediate, in the now consequence as a result of my actions. Okay, so one thing that we hear and all have heard, these terms. So therefore we have been programmed to think these things, right? If we do not program ourselves, someone or something, our brains are sponges. They're constantly taking in information all around us. And if we're not making a conscious effort to put information in, someone else is going to try to influence us, to spend money on this, to click on that, to follow X, Y, and Z, to do something or have an association with a product in a certain feeling with that product, right? If you're not taking the time to try to put your own thoughts and feelings into yourself and good information into yourself, someone else is going to do it for you. So one example of that is you can't teach old dogs new tricks. You can't change that. People don't change, right? How many times have you heard that? People don't change. Oh, you know, Fred and Larry, they're set in their ways. That is a choice that a person makes. The person is making a choice, and that's fine. If your ways are good and you're happy with your life, be set in your ways in certain things. In some areas, we're set in our ways in one area or another. For instance, recently, I've been set in my ways in regards to fitness, right? So we may need to look up a new fitness program and follow someone else's advice for a little while to kind of break us out of a particular practice that we're doing. Not that our current practice is bad, but maybe we just feel that we're doing the same thing over and over in the gym. Yeah, it's getting a decent result, but I just want to switch things up or get a little bit better in certain areas. You may have to change your program in the gym to reach that. Set in your ways as far as mindset can lead to calcification, where it's really, really hard to convince someone that their belief system is wrong or something they believe about X, Y, and Z is incorrect. For example, yesterday during my presentation, I talked about the food pyramid. There may be people that are dieting and they're putting a lot of effort into their diet and really trying to track every calorie and make everything perfect and do Weight Watchers and do all the things and do the points. And it's not working for whatever reason, but they really believe that it is going to work at some point. So they keep trying, they keep getting on that wheel, keep going round and round. And maybe it's not work. You're seeing it as a friend, like, hey, you've been doing this for 5 years and you gain 10 pounds and then you lose 5, and then you gain 10 pounds and then you lose 5, and then you gain, you're seeing them kind of on this roller coaster of dieting, and you try to talk to them about that. And they, no, it worked. I've been on it for a week and I've already lost 3 pounds. I just need to keep going with it. And I'm like, okay, well, you've done this like 5 times in the last 5 years and you're in the same place. That may be someone that's calcified in their belief system about a diet or a religion or a thought system, a series of thoughts that is going to be hard to break through. So I would implore you to not focus on other people. One thing that I want to make clear is that any information that I'm providing is not in the context of trying to change someone else. We all need to work internal first, and then offer to assist others as they go through positive change in their lives. So I know some people are extremely codependent, and they may look at some of this material and go, oh, cool. If I do this to my husband, maybe he'll, mow the lawn every Saturday, or maybe if I do this, I can influence that person to do what I want. And it's like, no, you shouldn't be thinking about it like that. Or maybe I can, do this to help my friend stop drinking, or maybe if I do this perfectly, my friend's going to stop using drugs. Once you start going down that path of trying to enable someone else or help them, you're probably going to do more harm than good. So if you're trying to help someone else with a issue, you should not create a consequence or prevent a consequence. You should not create a consequence or prevent a crisis or create a crisis for that person. So, for instance, somebody gets arrested because they were drinking and driving. Oh, my son's in jail. If I really love him, I won't let him sit in jail for a week until he sees the judge. That's his consequence. That's his natural consequence for drinking and driving. He's a big boy. He thinks he's a big enough boy to get in a car and drink. He's a big enough boy to handle his own court date and sit in jail, right? You should not be bailing that person out. If you bail that person out, you're bailing them out of their consequence, and they're actually more likely to repeat that pattern again. All right, so this is a nice image of this dog is set in his ways. He does not want to go and follow the toddler. I don't really blame him. He's probably like, where's my owner? Where's the responsible person that's supposed to be leading me in this life? I do not trust this toddler to make correct decisions, right? So we may be acting internally as a toddler. So that's an interesting one. And the complexity of neurons is something else that is just so fascinating to me. And if you've never really looked into neurology or neurons, mirror neurons, neuron memory, anything like that, you should really at least read a couple of articles on it. But obviously our brain is full of neurons, and that goes down into our spine. That's our central nervous system. And then from there, it just branches out and goes into every area of our body, and really is the tree that, of course, our circular system or blood also is too. I find that neurons are just so fascinating and have a lot of memory and have a lot of influence on the rest of the things we do. All right. So the human brain processes 36,000 visual messages per hour. That's pretty incredible, especially when you think about how many words a person can read in 1 minute, right? So if you read, it's 250 words per minute, or 15,000 per hour. Then we look at information transmission rates per sense. So you've got your taste, smell, ear, hearing, touch, and eyes. And touch, again, nerves, those are our neurons. Touch and eyes are the highest. Eyes are 10 million. So we are processing information consciously and subconsciously. Most of it's going to be subconscious, right? Because our conscious brain cannot take in that much information. So the point of me bringing this up is that you have images and feelings and thoughts around certain images and words that you may not even be aware of. So it's important to dive into those when you're looking at changing behavior for yourself, not for others, right? And just be aware that when you're sitting there and you're writing down these thoughts and feelings that come up in certain situations, when you see a picture, when you think about doing something or not doing something, it may not have been put there by you. It may have been put there by someone else. Maybe it was put there by your family when you were growing up. Maybe it was put there by TV shows that you've watched. It was put there somewhere along the way, and you were not conscious, perhaps you were not consciously aware of it. And this is your time as an adult, as a mature adult, to take power over that and say, I have control over what I think and what I focus on. And I am going to put a new thought and a new feeling, reframe this, and move forward as an adult in this world. It is estimated that the average person sees somewhere between 200 and 1,000 ads per day. There's some information out there that says 5,000. You may see as much as 5,000. It's hard to say with TikTok. So let's say the younger generation, they've been locked at home, they've been away from schools. Maybe they're on their phones more. Maybe they're playing more video games. Maybe their video games is flashing ads on the side and on the top bar and the bottom bar. Maybe TikTok, every couple seconds is blasting them with an image of some sort or some sort of an ad. So maybe it's getting up there. I think that the range of 200 to 1,000 ads per day is probably more realistic. Some of the ad blocker programs on your computer, they're reporting that they're blocking about 200 ads per day on your computer. So that's just on your computer. That's not including, obviously, billboards. If you're listening to the radio or a podcast that has ads throughout it. What else? I mean, there's a million different ways we get advertised to, right? So again, just thinking about where this programming is coming from. So once you establish what's wrong and what behavior you want to change, remember last time we talked about, you're usually adding a behavior or removing a behavior. And just in general, some good things to think about is what's wrong. Why are you not getting the results that you want? Maybe you know what to do. Maybe you've gotten some success in the past, but now you don't feel worthy. A lot of people, this is a subconscious practice that you have to do to really see how deep-seated this is. So for example, when I was a smoker, I was trying to quit. I practiced quitting, and I look at it whenever I talk to people that are quitting smoking, said practice a bunch of different ways. Wake up every day and practice. Even if you fail every day that you fail, you'll learn something new that doesn't work for you. And maybe you'll learn something that does work. It helps you get another hour through the day without smoking, or helps you get rid of one more cigarette. So I had been trying over and over and over and over again. I put a bracelet on my hand that I looked at every day to remind me of my grandmother that had died of COPD, basically, and what had happened to her, to remind me of future consequences that may result from me smoking, and that, how upset would she be if she looked down on me seeing me smoke, right? trying to think about that. And I tried dozens of times to quit, right? And so I was feeling very defeated. And I remember I was driving, and driving is a very interesting thing, because, and you have to be careful of what you're putting in your mind, is particularly when you're driving or you're watching certain programs on TV, is that it's an activity that you do, that you're actively doing something, but it's something that opens up your mind to be able to receive information, because you're seeing the road go by, right? So you're getting kind of similar signals over and over again. That's distracting your conscious mind, and then your subconscious becomes more open to impressions. So one of the reasons why NPR voice, everybody whispers in this kind of hypnotic state, and helps drive information into your subconscious about what's going on, you know, these neuro-linguistic programming voices, right? So really be conscious of what you're choosing to put into your car audio when you're driving, all right? But one time when I was driving, I was looking, I remember I was like here, the B pillar was here, or the A pillar was here, and I'm looking out the windows as I'm driving, you know, of course, scanning like this, and I was here. I remember thinking, for some reason, it came out of this side of my mind, that I didn't deserve not to smoke. And I thought, I don't deserve a life without smoking. Why do I think that? Why do I think that I'm not worth being smoke-free? So I dove into that some more. And once I became aware of that thought, and that was what I thought about myself, that my subconscious had somehow had gotten into my subconscious somehow, I was able to work on it, and I was able to overcome that and prove to myself that I was someone that could do it, and someone that deserved not to smoke. And as I went through and practiced not smoking over and over and over again, I got better at it. I learned how much nicotine I needed to overcome that addiction to the behavioral, because there's the physical addiction that you get from the nicotine and all the other chemicals. I mean, there's like thousands of chemicals in these cigarettes, right? That once they're combined and they're lit on fire, you get addicted to all of these. I think Marlboro is the worst. And so one thing I did is I went from Marlboro to Camel to, I think, natural. I tried those natural Indian ones. I forget what they're called. And Virginia Slims. I started smoking and having packs of cigarettes that I did not like. And at one point I even had rolls, which I hated, rolling. I mean, like, it takes forever, right? And I wouldn't let myself buy the little machines that roll them up for you, because that would have been too easy, right? We want to make things harder to do the things we don't want to do rather than easier. So I made sure I didn't buy one of the easy roll things. And I remember, you know, you really have to suck hard on those Virginia Slims and on the natural, what are they called? I want to say Natural Light, but that's a beer. So anyway, had to make it harder on myself. And then on days I practiced not smoking at all, I would rely on gum or a lozenge. And at one point I had a lozenge and a patch to get me through, to get me over the physical addiction to the chemicals in the cigarettes that were outside of just the nicotine alone, right? And then I was able to slowly bring down the nicotine. Also, as I went through that process, I noticed, wow, I don't have to drive to the store, the liquor store, at midnight anymore to make sure that if I ran out of cigarettes, that I had it in the morning. Because one of the things that I absolutely hated was waking up in the morning and not able to have my cigarette, my coffee. Right. So how inconvenient is that? It's very inconvenient to have to get up while you're relaxing or getting ready to fall asleep and shutting down your work day. I got to get up and go to the store, like you're in your PJs, and now you're spending $10. At the time I quit, they were about $5, I want to say. So that's my story about the self-esteem piece. Wrong action. So you may be taking incorrect action towards your goals. So for me, when I quit, I didn't quit, but when I changed my diet several times, and I had it in my head that a vegetarian diet was healthy, right? For me. I know it is for some people. I'm not here to poo-poo any diet. I'm just here to tell you my story, and maybe you can draw correlations to what you're doing and maybe work on changing it. So in my mind, I had thought that the vegetarian diet was the healthiest diet in the world. And so I had quit drinking and went on a raw foodist diet for a while. Super hard, super difficult. And then when I quit smoking, I had a lot of behavioral crutches that I was using. One was straws, right? And hard candies at first, before I switched to just sugar-free gum. And straws had, instead of water, I had soda. I was just trying to get through it. You know, when you're in the middle of it, you're in the throes, you're like, okay, it's better than like this smoking thing I'm doing. I've got it. Like, you got it. Sometimes when you have a big addiction, you just got to throw everything you have at it and then worry about the consequences of quitting, you know, later. And I had gotten addicted to soda in this process because I really liked the straw, and the fizzy sensation in my mouth, I guess, helped. And then the hard candies. And I don't do well with sugar-free stuff. It upsets my stomach. And so I couldn't really do the sugar-free very often. And I did for a little bit to kind of help me get away from that, and eventually landed on sugar-free gum. Was super helpful. And then, of course, drinking I don't have it, I left it in the bathroom, but I always carry a tumbler around with a straw sticking out, and I put healthy drinks in there now. I still use these things. I quit over 10 years ago, quit smoking, and I still have behavioral addictions to some of these things. Now they're harmless. Now I'm using them as a positive thing, right? Drinking out, I really like drinking from a straw. Now I have to focus on what I put in my tumbler, right? And as long as I'm putting good stuff in my tumbler, it's good for me. So it's morphed over time. And I've used those little quirks that I have because of my addictions in the past to my advantage now. So even though it's technically a behavioral addiction to the straw and that sensation, because I don't remember the study, but this motion is a behavioral addiction, because you are getting a hit of nicotine every time you do this. So we become addicted just behaviorally to this motion. And I think it's like hundreds of times a day that you're doing this. So you get addicted. So people might find themselves picking at their face. People might find themselves playing with their hair. Like, you might find these nervous twitches or nervous behaviors that usually categorized as like anxiety behaviors that's really tied to behavioral addiction, stemmed from something that you did in the past, right? So anyway, wrong action. So I was taking, for me, after I quit smoking, I was getting fat, right? Because I was taking in all this excess sugar. And I had started running. I was running and doing push-ups and doing some sit-ups every day, because that had worked for me in the past, doing that. And I was not losing weight. I was just getting fatter and fatter. And I sat there and went, oh my gosh, no wonder women. I remember my grandmother saying she'd rather smoke than be fat. And I've heard other women say that. I'd rather smoke than be fat. So I guess I'm just going to smoke and die earlier, because I'm not going to be fat. I'm just hell or high water. I'm not going to be fat. I mean, look at what women do to their bodies if they get fat. They're doing like liposuction. I mean, you're cutting yourself open. You're spending thousands of dollars on sucking the fat out because you hate it so much, because this has got this visceral reaction to fat. Talk about an emotional response to fat. So I had decided it's not a big deal. We can figure this out. I had prioritized quitting smoking. This is my next hurdle that I have to go over. I'm not going to go backwards and decide to smoke again, right? I had made that decision in my mind. So I decided to do a vegetarian diet. And that was because of the belief system. I went to a Seventh-day Adventist Christian church for a bit. They're vegetarians. A lot of information that we get through the media suggests that vegetarian diets are the way for everyone. So I had some programming around the fact that vegetarian was the way to go. So I started down that path. As I continued down that path, one, I wasn't getting the results I was looking for. My weight, I think, stabilized, but it wasn't going down any. And I was getting excruciating pain in my stomach area, upper and lower digestion region, so bad that when I would come home from work, I would put a heating pad on my stomach and lay sideways on the couch. And I made appointments with my doctors because I knew that I was doing something, because obviously my diet had changed. So it was something that I was eating that was causing these reactions in my stomach. So I went to the doctor. I was told I had IBS. I needed to go to a gastroenterologist. I needed to perhaps take medication now. And I got really angry with my doctor. It was a female. And I said, this is bullshit. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Sorry, I'm cussing. Kids. Sometimes when I get passionate about stuff, I say a curse word or two. And I looked at this doctor and I said these things to her. And I said, it's obvious. If you're looking at this in a scientific way, I just changed my diet. So therefore, it's something in my new diet that is causing this. It doesn't mean that I have to take a pill for the rest of my life. It means I need to eliminate the thing that's causing the pain. She said, well, this is the protocol. We refer out for gastroenterology, and they will do scans and put cameras down your throat and probably up your butt and look for things that may be causing it. I said, I know what's causing it. I just need you to pinpoint which thing it is. I just need to know which thing I need to stop eating. I know it's one of the things. I just kept reiterating to her, like, do you understand the logic? Do you understand that I just changed my diet and I never had these pains before, and now I'm having these pains? She said, well, we can't test for sensitivities. They're not accurate tests. We can test for allergies, and you don't have an allergy because you're not swelling up. You don't need an EpiPen or anything like that. I said, I understand, but you're wrong. I don't need to take a medication. I just need to eliminate what I'm putting in my body and just figure out what thing is hurting my body. So she stormed out and I stormed out. And as I was leaving, I was talking to the billing lady, because there's always the billing lady, like, oh, you owe this much. Da, 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 da. And my little doctor comes up to me. She says, excuse me, Miss Deweese. And I said, yes. I'm like, kind of like sideways to her, like, I've lost so much respect for you, thinking in my head, like, I'm pissed. And she says, there's been a diet that has been showing results with IBS under a clinical setting. And before you go to the gastroenterologist, I would suggest that you look at this diet, perhaps try it, see if it helps, or see if you can pinpoint which item in this list is causing you pain, and go from there. Said, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I said, that is exactly the information that I'm looking for as a patient. I am extremely proud of you for going back into your office and getting this information. And I really congratulate you on making this change in your life. And she stormed off. She was still pissed at me, but I think she knew I was right. And I sometimes wonder, you know, thinking back to that experience with that doctor, I really, really hope that she as a physician went back into her room and thought about the information. And I hope that she continues to look into different elimination diets that she can suggest to people that are having gastrointestinal issues, because oftentimes the gastrointestinal issues are caused from what we're eating, right? Like that's, I mean, yeah, I know the gut, everything starts in the gut, you know, right? Your immune system starts in the gut. A lot of the moods that you may be having maybe starting in the gut because of these chemicals are setting off certain neurotransmitters and all that. You know, there's so many systems that start with what you are putting in your body for fuel. All that other ancillary systems aside, like the direct system of pain in the abdomen after you eat X, Y, and Z, I mean, that should just be very clear to these people. And it's not, because it doesn't follow some of their protocols. So anyway, I was taking wrong action. And with this, she handed me the FODMAPs diet. And this was, I don't know, 15 years ago or something. And so I went through the FODMAPs diet and I took what I liked and I left the rest. I really liked the idea of an elimination diet. So putting in having a very structured list. I'm going to eat these basic foods for a month or a week. I could only do a week when I started. So I ate whole foods, like in this area of the FODMAPs diet, for a week. And then every day I would add a new food and see how I felt. So one of them was shrimp. I remember shrimp was on there. I'm like, okay, if I can't eat shrimp, I'm ready to die. So I'm going to try that one first. If it's shrimp, then okay, I'll know that. And I'll just know to take a enzyme or something before I have shrimp. So I had shrimp, I was fine. Another one was apple. I had an apple and I was fine. And then I added soy. And soy, I had a severe reaction. It was a Oka burger, I believe, in my mind, a high protein diet with vegetables was the way to go. And so I was having a lot of soy when I went vegetarian. And it just blew up my stomach. Had so much severe pain, and I had no idea it was a thing. I had heard of dairy, you know, being lactose intolerant. I had no idea there was soy intolerance, and I'm here to tell you it is an absolute thing. It is real. It's gotten worse over time. I was able to digest this food, these soybeans and beans in general, really, when I was younger. And as I've gotten older, I am not able to do it. So, and sometimes there's been a couple of times where I've accidentally eaten soy and I had to stay home for like the whole day is done. I'm on the couch. I'm just completely in pain. And then the next day I have extreme brain fog, and I kind of really have to take it easy on myself the day after as well. So sometimes our belief systems cause us to take wrong action, and we may continue to take wrong action and keep going down the wrong path, right? If I had listened to the first words out of my doctor's mouth, which were go to a gastroenterologist, get cameras shoved up your rear end and down your throat, and take Enbrel or, you know, Humira for the rest of your life, I would have maybe gone down that path and gotten farther away from a solution that was a lot easier, an easier way that caused me to grow and learn and be here with you today. Ineffective action. So you may be taking action that is ineffective. So for instance, perhaps you're doing things that are getting you results, but they're not sustainable. So for instance, and I don't mean to pick on Jenny Craig, I mean, whatever gets you started, gets you started. But I think these diet communities, sometimes, you know, they come up with this point system, or Weight Watchers, let's say, and those people, they go in and they weigh you every week and yay, you lost 3 pounds and yay, you hit your points. Like hitting your points isn't actually really teaching you what foods are best for you. Because a lot of times you can eat the foods that work with your body as much as you want, and then you don't have to worry about points. You know what I mean? Like you'll get to a point. There's an easier way to learn about food where you can focus on foods that make you feel good and eat to satiation and not have to worry about points, right? Because everybody's going to have the birthday cake. There's going to be days where you have a little bit extra sugar. That's fine. But maybe working on bad habits around your diet and emotions around certain foods is going to be more sustainable in the long run than just following points. Learning how to not snack. Like, why do you snack? Why are you having snacks 6 times a day? Like, are you going to die if you don't have a snack? Like, why are you having a snack? It's not because you need food. If you're overweight, you don't need any more food. So why are you snacking? You're snacking because it's that behavioral addiction. Maybe you, like with me, I was snacking because I had the behavioral addiction of this because of smoking and the crunch, you know, occupied my mouth and all this stuff. Some people snack to distract themselves. They don't want to think about a feeling or an emotion or a thought that they're having, and they got nervous, and they're like the movie, you're eating popcorn in the movie because you're watching a suspenseful movie, you know. Same thing can happen in our lives where we're going through a stressful situation. We have a meeting with our boss in a couple of minutes. So, oh my God, I'm going to snack, you know, and eat all these chips before I go in there. So you're not necessarily doing wrong action in a Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig. You're just probably doing ineffective action. You're probably not working on the root cause of your weight gain or your inability to eat a healthy way for you. And it's better than what you were doing, right? It's better to take a step forward, and that's fine. If it works for you for a certain amount of time, that's fine. It gets the ball rolling for you. But at some point, in order to have effective action, you're going to have to dive deeper and not just look at points, right? All right, so you are your own experiment. You're the only person you can experiment on ethically, right? You can't go experimenting on other people. At least you can, but it wouldn't be moral, right? You have a hypothesis, a practice, or an action, and then you evaluate your results. And as you're evaluating, you say, are these the results I was looking for? And then if they were, and you're getting the progress you were hoping for, you continue to practice that action. If you evaluate and you go, yeah, I'm down a couple of pounds, but I am losing muscle, not fat. Maybe you do some sort of a dunk tank evaluation or a pod test, and you find out that, or even just a caliper test, and you find I've been dieting, but I'm not losing body fat, I'm losing weight. But most people, when you want to lose weight, we just want to lose fat. We want the muscle, because the muscle is what looks good. It's what drives our metabolism. It's one of the major factors in driving your metabolism and helping you burn more calories is muscle. But what you want to do is you want to try to get rid of some of that fat. And if you do an evaluation that's looking at body fat percentage rather than just the scale's fine. It's just a number. Sometimes we can lose fat and not lose weight because we're gaining muscle, burning fat. That's what some people really want to do. So if your evaluation tool is appropriate, you'll be able to evaluate appropriately. So if you're evaluating simply just weight, you may think, oh, I'm losing weight, and not realize that you're losing muscle and not fat. But someone that is evaluating their fat, maybe through a caliper test, and they say, wow, I still have the same pinch test, but I'm losing weight. So that means I'm losing muscle and not fat. What do I need to do to really focus on losing the fat and not the muscle? And adjust as needed. So again, this can be the simple 3-step, 4-step process can be really in anything. And I think one of the problems that people do is they have a hypothesis, and that hypothesis never changes based off of their results. They just continue to get the same results over and over again and expect a different result. They're on this, what I call the hamster wheel. They're gaining 10 pounds, they're losing 10 pounds. They're gaining 10 pounds, they're losing 8 pounds. They're gaining 10, they're just constantly, it's like, okay, is that how you want to live your life? Do you want to continue to hop on and off this program that you hate doing, you force yourself to do, and you're using all this willpower, but then you're getting nowhere in the long run? There's probably something wrong with your belief system, your hypothesis around what you're trying to accomplish. So I went through this. I had, of course, like I told you, the vegetarian thing. I learned about soy. I could pretty much do really well on most diets as long as I'm light on legumes. Peas are pretty okay, but if I go too heavy on lentils or any other sort of legume, I have problems. So I have to really be conscious of that, structure my diet in the appropriate way so that I get the right amount of nutrients and protein. I do best with a very high protein diet. That's what I have found works really well for me. As soon as I found the right amount of protein for me and what was satiating for me, it was more than I had thought. I thought that a serving, because we were taught like a serving of protein is this. I just eat this 3 times a day of protein, I will be after ice cream and cookies, and like I'll have a lot of cravings if I just eat the size of protein on the palm of my hand. So I've learned over time, okay, the least amount of cravings if I make my protein, like I'll eat protein until I'm satiated, and then I might have some like vegetables or fruit or something, some other whole food after I get my protein in. I had believed that weight loss was the way. Now I believe that fat loss is the way. Muscles are the way. Fat helps us if we're hibernating. Ancestrally, fat helped us because there were times where we didn't have as many calories. We went through months where their calories were not available because the crops weren't growing as well. It was harder for the men to get out there and hunt because of the weather conditions, or animals were hibernating. So we didn't have as much access to food during those months. And so the months where there were a lot of food, we ate till we popped because we put on more fat. And fat is simply a calorie storage mechanism to make sure that we survive those months of the year where there's not as much food. That's all it's there for. We don't really need it. So you'll see, I love watching the survivor shows. I love watching the shows that like Naked and Afraid, or not for the naked part. I love watching these shows. What's the other one where they like drop people off, and there'll be like, let's say 10 contestants, and they are 30 miles apart from each contestant. I watched this one where they dropped people off in the Arctic Circle, right? And they had clothes and everything, but I think they were able to take 2 items with them. A lot of people took a knife and a pot, you know, or a knife and a fire starter, or a fire starter and a water filtration thing. And these people were dropped off, and you don't know who, it's called alone. You don't know who wins, right? So you're out there, you're by yourself. The goal is to go as long as you can. And then once you've hit a wall, or the medical team says, hey, if you continue, you might die, we have to pull the plug on you. You may be the last person, or you may not. You never know when the other contestants dropped out. You're just out there by yourself, to your own tools, your own mind. So these, I think, are very interesting proving grounds for diet and nutrition and what happens when the body is pushed to the limit. I think it's absolutely amazing. In modern society, we have the ability to be vegans, right? We have the ability to be vegetarians. But every time you see these people get dropped off, like Naked and Afraid, they get dropped off, and there's always the vegetarian lady or vegan lady, and she's like, I'm going to eat, you know, just vegan, you know, I'm going to live for 30 days out here just eating fruits and vegetables. And it's like, okay, go find fruits and vegetables in the wild. Good luck with that, right? So the man is like eating bunnies and fish and crickets and whatever he can find, right? And eventually, every single time, maybe there's one that is, I mean, I'm wrong, but every single one I've seen, the vegan has to eat the fish. The vegan has to eat the bird. The vegan, you have to eat ancestral-based foods to get through those situations. You just absolutely have to. And you go back and you take it back and you simplify things. You have to eat this way, right? You have to eat what's available in nature at some point. So going back to the alone, the last 2 people, I believe it was season 7. It was an incredible season. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. There's a female, she's kicking ass. She made her own shelter. She had a food system. She was getting bunnies. She was really effective and really good at trapping bunnies. And then you had the man, who was the first one to ever kill large game, right? He was the one that he killed a moose out there with very limited resources. I mean, just a badass, just totally, both of these people were just badasses. And they were out there for like weeks, long time. And the woman had to bow out because she had a rabbit, I forget what it's called, but it's when there's an actual term with the word rabbit in it, where you're having too much protein, because protein is thermogenic. So it takes more calories and more bodily energy to break down lean protein than it does carbs or fat, right? So her body was getting too much lean protein and not enough fat, and it was eating itself. Got to the point where her body fat percentage got way too low, and she couldn't function anymore. She would get to the point where she would literally die, even though she had plenty of food. Because of the source of food was just rabbits, and she didn't have a carb or a fat source, she was going to perish, right? And then with the man knew this. I don't think the woman, I didn't get the impression that the woman knew about the rabbit issue. Maybe she did, I don't remember. But the man, he was really trying to plan for this. He knew his goal was to kill large game, a large moose, and harvest the fat from the moose and put it up really high. He built this structure to get it up and away from the animals, so that as the show went on, as he got into the winter season, he would have a fat source to keep him alive, because he knew that the meat from the moose, that moose is very lean and would not sustain him through the winter. What ended up happening was a badger, a family of badgers, had found his fat source and got into like half of it one time. And then he rebuilt this structure. He tried to reinforce it and make it where the animals couldn't get to the fat, and the animals got to the fat. So he lasted longer because he had eaten some of the fat over that time that he was battling with the badgers over the fat. So he had a little bit more time than the woman with the rabbits, because that's all she had was rabbits. And every piece of the rabbit is leaner than the moose as a whole. And obviously the moose is more food, period. So anyway, it's just a really interesting way of looking at nutrition and food and what the body actually needs to survive, and what our ancestors did to survive in this on Earth. So choosing a behavior to add, of course, we're going to have to do some journaling, figure out what we're going to do. I usually like to include some sort of an education, learning new material, if you're not getting the results you want, you need to learn more material. You need to educate yourself. Sometimes that's, like I said before, what you know is wrong, and you need to learn correct material. Or it's what you know is wrong, you believe you're not worth it, therefore you're not taking right action. So maybe you need to listen to material that's positive, or you need to do some affirmations. I had a point in my life where I had recorded, it's so easy now with our phones. So there's recording devices on our phones and apps, free apps. You can record yourself saying, I am worth it, I am worthy, I am, happy, I am healthy, I'm going to the gym every day. I mean, you can talk to yourself, and what I had to do is I had to write it down and say it, even though I didn't believe it. Of course, you can re-record it, because I feel like, your brain knows if you're being truthful or not in your voice, especially if it's your voice. But in most voices, we have this very keen ability to read vocal inflection and body language and things like that. And at some point, you may be able to make some progress on the affirmations that you don't believe, but perhaps you may have to re-record them as you start to believe them more. Reinforce through words and thought. So reinforcing a new behavior, like I said, with the cigarettes, I would make myself sit and go, what advantages, how did you get forward today from not smoking? Oh, I didn't have to go to the store at midnight. Like I'm not going to be smoking in the morning, so I don't have to get in my car in the cold in my pajamas and go spend $5 on the cigarette. So just really making mental notes of those wins and trying to cement those in your mind as much as possible. Internal or external. So it's either internally or you're writing them down externally, or sometimes the external is from the people around us. So the people around us may be assholes. Again, with the cursing, maybe jerks, and giving us false information, or giving us bad information, or giving us negative feedback. So if you're in a situation where you're living with someone that is giving you more negative feedback, you're really going to have to do this for yourself more. So for instance, if you're in a situation where you're trying to eat whole foods and your partner, the person you live with, loves chips or pizza, and you order pizza and everybody, the family sits down and eats pizza, and you're eating something else. Those people around you may say, what's wrong with you? Here, have one piece. Oh, it's so good. They may keep trying to pressure you into doing what they're doing. This happens with drinking as well. You're the DD and you go to the bar and everybody's like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you drinking? Like, I'm drunk. Like, I want you to be drunk with me. It's like, well, why? Like, can't I just sit here and not drink? Like, why is that weird? So you may have these external reinforcements that are negative. So if you're in a situation like that, you're really going to have to work on making sure that you get rid of those, get those situations out of your life, or really make sure that you're giving yourself enough reinforcement in other ways. Okay, you're gonna have to really fight with that. Or like I said, remove yourself from certain relationships or environments for a period of time until you build up your confidence more in yourself, where your words matter more to yourself. Because sometimes when we first start, our words don't matter as much to ourselves as other people, where at some point you'll get to an area where you only care about what you say. You don't really care about other people, what other people say as much, right? So note, belief, benefits of behavior and thoughts, feelings, emotions surrounding this behavior, and address as needed. So as you're practicing, I love the word practice because I think people have so much fear of failure and fear of success that if we look at these behaviors as you're practicing, you're not really married to it yet. You're just practicing. You're not, it's not tying, you're not having, I find it works for me because I'm not tying such a strong feeling, thought, or emotion to it. It's more, oh, I'm just trying this on. I'm just wearing a new different pair of pants today. It's not as much of a commitment as I'm the sort of person that does this every day. It's like not as rigid in my mind, where if I'm doing a practice and I'm practicing a behavior, trying it on, it allows me that wiggle room. I like a little bit of wiggle room. So maybe that'll work for you. Okay, I screwed that up. Plan for behaviors you want to stop, remove. So you may want to avoid, like I said, with the drinking situation, there are going to be people, places, and environments you're going to want to avoid for a while if you're quitting drugs, right? Like you're not going to go to your dealer's house and sit and hang out. Like, you know, once you step through that door, you're going to fall victim. I don't want to use that word. You're going to do a behavior that you said you wouldn't do. So don't go to the drug dealer's house. Don't go to the bar if you're not going to drink. Because what do people do at bars? They drink. What do people do at drug dealers' houses? They do drugs. Avoid going to a candy store if you're trying to limit your sugar. I'm not saying you're never going to be being able to go to these places. For instance, my first 3 years of quitting drinking, I was not able to go to a bar. After that 3-year mark for me, some people get it sooner, some people never get it at all. After that 3-year mark, I can walk in and I don't have the desire to drink. I don't feel like people can say whatever they want to me. They can say, I've had people call me a prude. I've had people call me names. Come on, just one. You know, you can say whatever you want to me, and I'm not going to do it. Right. And I got to that place. I didn't have to avoid those places anymore. Not that I enjoy it as very much, you know, like who wants to be talked to like that by people that are insecure about themselves and therefore project their insecurity onto me. I don't really want to be in those places anymore, but if I need to go or I have a hair up my butt, we want to go dancing. A lot of times if my girlfriends want to go out and we want to go dancing, I don't mind going. I just get a mocktail and it's fine. So I had to avoid those situations for 3 years. Remember, after the 3-year mark, I was able to do it. With smoking, I had to avoid going to meetings. I went to NA and AA meetings for a while I was quitting drinking and doing drugs. And when I quit smoking cigarettes, I had to stop going because a lot of those meetings, there were some where you could smoke inside and I loved that, and drink your coffee and talk and share stories and all that stuff. It was wonderful. I loved it, but I had to stop going because I loved that so much. I loved that camaraderie so much that I had to step away. Now, could I go? I wouldn't want to be in a room with a bunch of smoke now and not smoke. Maybe I would take a cigar or something. I've gotten to the place where I can have a cigar. Like I was doing it like once every 4 months, and then probably twice a year, and then about once a year. If I went golfing, I'd used to do some golf tournaments and things like that, and I would take a nice cigar with me. So got to the point where I was able to do that. But now, last time I had a cigar, I think it was last New Year's, not 2022, but I believe it was 2021. I had a cigar, and it just, I noticed my throat didn't feel great the next day. I thought I had a sore throat. I'm like, what's wrong with me? Do I have, the beer virus? And I thought about it. I'm like, oh, I had a cigar last night. Oh, wow, that's really tearing up my throat now, because it used to not. I mean, not like I inhale. I know not to inhale, but like draw on it, and it just kind of, you let the smoke roll around in there, and it's hot. So it kind of, if you're not used to it, if you don't build calcification or calluses up on that, you're more sensitive if you don't smoke often. So anyway, so avoid is one that you will have to do most likely in the beginning, especially if it's a very strong addictive behavior, depending on the severity of the behavior. Replace. So one thing to do is replace, like I said, with the smoking, I had to replace it with gum and candy and straws, and find the thing that helps you. I had to go to the gym, and I still have to go to the gym on a regular basis for my mental health. It helps me bring a sense of accomplishment. I feel very accomplished when I go. It brings confidence. It brings a better mentality, because I work out my emotions in there. Negative emotions like get left there. And I can do yoga some days. I can do heavy weights to work out aggressive feelings. So it's a replacement mechanism for a lot of my, it's where I work a lot of my feelings out there. Some people use church. Church can be a wonderful place to work through things and be in a community of people. Finding a community can be extremely important. It's more important to some than others. I believe it was very important for me at one time in my life. It's not as important for me now, although I do love my people when I find them, and it is absolutely wonderful to be able to pick up the phone and work through a day. Sometimes you just need to pick up the phone and vent to somebody. You're not looking for a miracle from the person. Sometimes it's just venting to each other, and those are wonderful people to have. Reward and consequence. So like I said, with the smoking, when I would run, that was my way of creating a consequence for myself. Okay, so said, you can smoke, but every day you're going to get up in the freaking morning and you're going to run, and your lungs are going to burn. And the less you smoke, the less it burns. So that was my way of finding a natural consequence for my actions. And like I said, you want to be around people who don't save you from having consequences. So the parent that bails their kid out of jail, like they are delaying a natural consequence. Like you have to let people experience their consequences. You can't steal their consequences from them. You are preventing them from moving forward in life. You're actually hurting them if you're bailing them out all the time, right? Some sort of a reward system for yourself. So I use this more now. So if I do something that I don't want to do, because I have to be a big girl now, I have to, work and take care of the kid and do X, Y, and Z. Maybe there's something that I don't want to do. I don't find as much joy in or at that time, maybe I scheduled something a week from now. And at that time I scheduled it, I really wanted to do it. And then that week later comes and I said I was going to do it. And the day comes and I don't want to do it. It's like, okay, well, if you do it afterwards, you can, go to the gym. Like the gym is my reward. I know some people, it might be like a Halo Top ice cream, or I know sometimes it might be food. We want to try to, not have that always be our reward, but I guess sometimes it would be fine to have that as a reward. I've had energy drinks be my reward sometimes, although I can't do that anymore because they screw my stomach up. It could be a movie that you really want to watch. Okay, if I get through this day, I'm going to sit down with my family and watch this movie that I've been looking forward to watching. There's a lot of different rewards, and you'll probably know what it is in your own mind. So it might be listening to a song, or like I said, a movie, or meeting up with a friend could be that reward. Like you can't schedule this meeting with your friend until you finish this business meeting, right? Like you don't want to, friends are important, right? But you don't want to go out for coffee with a friend before this major business meeting comes up that you don't want to do. And maybe you end up botching it or not being prepared, or something in that way. Maybe schedule it after your business meeting. So you're like, okay, once I get through this business meeting, I get to unpack this with my friend and unwind and have a nice cup of tea, right? Excuse me. Awareness and acknowledgement. So being aware, recognizing the thoughts and feelings surrounding it, replacing the behavior, reframing, willingness to change. So a lot of times we don't have the willingness to change. And a lot of times this comes down to what we had talked about before with self-esteem, or just a severe calcification in a belief system. You may be in a place where you're the dog, like not wanting to move forward because you don't trust yourself. You view yourself as the toddler. Maybe you need to elevate yourself in your own mind and become the adult that you can be to take care of yourself. These are all allegories just to make you think about how you are viewing yourself. Are you viewing yourself as someone that you follow through on what you say? Or do you respect yourself? Do you view yourself as someone that is competent, that can get things done? Do you view yourself as someone that's able to follow through on what they say? If you're having a hard time with this and you really want to move forward, I suggest probably you're going to start out with journaling, writing it all down, writing down every thought that's coming in your mind, positive and negative, and then talking about it with someone, talking about it with a friend or a coach or a counselor can be a really great place to start. But ask and you will receive. If you are struggling with a change, ask questions. Just keep asking questions. Your brain will answer your questions. Your brain does not like questions that don't have an answer. It will continue to reveal and show you what you're looking for. Like, what are you thinking? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? You're gonna find the answer if you keep digging. You just got to keep asking the question. Seek and you shall find, ask and you shall receive, right? It applies to a lot of different areas. Continued motivation to submit the change, repeating practices that work for you. So once you find a practice that really you find the perfect pair of pants, your favorite jeans, and you put them on and you just feel cozy on a Friday. These are practices. These are habits. They eventually turn into habits if you do a practice and you're like, wow, that worked well in my day. I blocked out, this is my time for emails, this is my time for gym, this is my time for research, this is my time for making a video. That workflow, I was efficient at those times. That really worked well for me. Wow, how many times can I repeat this? Can we repeat it on every day of the week? That might not be realistic. Maybe we can repeat it on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Maybe we can just repeat it on Tuesday, Thursday. Like find how many times you can repeat that practice in a week and stick to it. There may be practices that you can stick to every single day. Like me, it's my coffee, right? Get up, take the dogs out, brew coffee, brush teeth, go get coffee, sit, and I write. I brain dump, put everything on paper. Because if I keep everything in my mind, all my to-dos and everything that's going on up there, now I'm busy. Now my mind is busy. I've got to get it on paper so that I don't feel so much overwhelm. It's not as big. It's off my mind. I can calendar it. I got to schedule a dental appointment. I got to schedule, write it down. Okay, let's schedule, put all these things in my calendar. I know that there's a place and a time for those, and we are going to do those once we get to that, right? And again, that's just time management stuff. Repeating practices that work for you, continue to reach for growth. We have to grow each and every day. We have to continue to work on ourselves. If we don't, the world is going to tell us what to do, and we're going to have a life that we don't want. We're going to have a life that is not fulfilling. We're not going to reach our highest potential. We have to continue to practice these looking in the mirror, right? I know it's really scary for a lot of people. Like I said in the beginning, if you're not looking in the mirror, not looking at yourself, the world isn't going to change, right? Your world isn't going to change. Nothing's going to change. You're just going to be influenced by everyone else and willy-nillying it and So got to continue to work on ourselves. Prevent the stagnant escalator. So I talked about that in my last video. All right, so I think I went over some pretty personal information in this video, hopefully going back to some of my personal experiences helps you put some context to what I am saying. Of course, every situation is different. Death comes up. That's going to be, losing someone you love is going to be different. Divorce is going to be different for different people. These roadblocks, these events in our life that come up, there are going to be different paths for everyone to recover from the trauma that the world brings upon us. There are things that we can't control. What I'm trying to focus on is what you can control, and that is yourself, your thoughts, your actions, your belief systems, what you say. Just in this video is just all about looking in the mirror and looking in to make everything external better, the world better. If everybody did this year in and year out, would the world be a better place? I really think so. I think collectively, as a collective conscious, everybody would be a lot better if everyone just took some time and just focused on themselves instead of focusing on everyone else. So with that, I'm going to leave you with that, and hopefully you got something from this video, and thank you for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time. Ciao.